This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
You are plugged in for the podcast, Wrestlers Society.
Faith is the place, and the sky's the limit.
With a tear in my eye, it's the podcast, Wrestling Society. I'm your loving leader, benevolent host, Midwest Monster, and mean, by God, Gene, I am Troy Adams. And royally rumbling with me here today is the typhoon to my earthquake. 3, 2, 1. It's Greg. What's up, Greg?
I'd rather be Shockmaster.
Well, you can be the Shockmaster to my shark. How about that?
Okay, that's fair.
That's clearly the superior gimmick for both of those men. What the hell has Earthquake ever done compared to the Shark? He was in the Dungeon of Doom.
Which was on fire at one point. That WWE was, going out of business almost because of them.
Why do we always somehow come back to the Dungeon of Doom on this show?
Because it's epic.
I think we need some help. I don't know.
Speak for yourself.
The Royal Rumble 1992 was an historic event, man. You were pretty young at this time. Were you actually watching wrestling at this point even?
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, because you were.
I watched this one live.
Oh, you were actually watching them live at this point. Okay.
Yeah. Well, this one, I can't think on top of my head everything. But
this one was a huge show. Ric Flair was finally in the WWF after being the mainstay for the NWA forever. And this was a big thing. WWE did not waste time putting him into the mix for all the stuff, all the big things. But before we get into the actual event, I do want to say credits for all of my notes go to 411mania.com, Wikipedia, you and me's favorite website.
My Bible.
We're also using ProFightDB.com and your favorite, Greg, the Wrestling Observer newsletter.
Of course. My pissing buddy.
Hell yeah. Well, you still got that one chance, Greg. Use it
I know.
wisely.
I'm saving it for a special occasion.
Does it roll over to the new year? Do you now have all your chances?
I don't know, but I'm not testing it. So I'm saving it for my special occasion.
All right, then. Well, we'll go with that. To kind of set the landscape of where everything is in the business at this time, kind of getting into this was actually a big time for many reasons. First being we are in the thick of the steroid trial and stuff, the WWF. Inside Edition and 2020 both ran pieces on the issue. Among the most damaging parts were superstar Billy Graham and David Schultz, both talking about Hulk Hogan's excessive steroid use. They also showed FedEx receipts of packages sent from Dr. Zahorian to Hulk Hogan, as well as showed clips of Hogan's various interviews where he lied and contradicted himself. Speaking of Dr. Zahorian, he was finally sentenced to 3 years in federal prison, 2 years of probation for each of the 12 counts, and a $12,700 fine and forfeiture of his $3.7 million office/condo. So crap's kind of hitting the fan right now. Obviously, we know that nothing is going to happen to Vince McMahon. They're going to, rule that he had nothing to do with this. It was all through the doctor who did get convicted. You were kind of too young to even pay attention to any of this, right?
Yeah, I literally have no memory of this, as it was happening.
Yeah, everything I know about it, obviously, I was not even 2 years old at this time, so I don't know anything like this, but I've seen enough, retrospect and whatever, and I've heard enough interviews to know this was something, man. This big deal, and some people thought that old Vinnie Mac there was going to ship off to the clink. But it did not happen, and hey, Jerry Jarrett didn't have to take over the company.
Thank God.
I still don't know if that's true or not. I will say this, however, the only person I know of.
Bruce Pritchard said it was going to happen.
I've heard Bruce Pritchard on his podcast. They asked him, and he said no. He was brought in as a consultant. There was no way in hell he was going to take over the company. There wasn't even a chance of that. So I don't know.
Well, there was a shoot interview where he said he was ready to take over. I don't know if that meant that then. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's the only person I've ever heard contradict that Jerry Jarrett was going to be the next in line to take over for Vince, though. Everybody else that I've heard interviews for, and you can take them with a grain of salt, whatever, but they've all kind of said it's like, yeah, Jarrett was brought in to take over. Vince, got arrested, but didn't happen. Well, Jesse Ventura. Jesse Ventura, by the way, filed a lawsuit around this time against Vince McMahon regarding the use of Ventura's announcing work on video releases and compilations that Ventura was not paid for. Jesse eventually won the case and was awarded sacks full of money. I didn't get an exact dollar amount, but it was a lot of money. And then Ventura debuted in WCW 2 days after the Royal Rumble at Clash of the Champions 18 as an announcer. Do you have any memory of Jesse Ventura as an announcer?
I remember him being on there, and I was a kid. I'm like, what the hell? Why is he on here? I was baffled by it.
Yeah, because
I didn't understand it back then. Like a couple of weeks after WrestleMania, Jake the Snake would debut on there. Again, I was baffled. So,
Yeah, it was a little weird. I mean, imagine, me as a kid. I grew up playing the Super Nintendo games. That's how I knew a lot of the old school stars, because like I've said before, I didn't start watching till like the end of 97, beginning of 98. So the only reason I knew a lot of the old school guys was I played WWF Royal Rumble, WrestleMania the arcade game, and WWF Raw for Super Nintendo and PlayStation, whatever. And that's how I knew a lot.
Sega was more superior. Just got to say that. Go on. Sorry.
I never had a Sega. But
Bell.
Because of that, and I'd sit there and I go, well, where are all these guys? And my dad would flip it over to Nitro and be like, there you go. And I was like, oh, that's Mr. Perfect and Diesel and Hulk Hogan. And I'm like, why do they all have different names? And I'm 7. I didn't know. Yeah, it was something like that. But yeah, speaking of the company down south, by the way, WCW executive VP Jim Herd, quote, resigned from the company over the weekend. Word was that he was forced into resigning.
I heard everybody cried.
Oh yeah, Ding Dong the Witch is dead. We've talked.
Ding Dong.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize what I was saying at first, but yeah. The man who came up with such brilliant gimmicks as the Ding Dongs. And
now the archives.
He brought in the Ding Dongs and then saw no value in Jim Cornette and the Midnight Express. Just putting that out there. And he wanted
the Ding Dongs, dude. That's money.
He wanted Ric Flair to shave his head and put in an earring and call himself Spartacus.
Again, money.
Ric Flair. Yeah, well, after he left WCW, I think that's when Rick was like, all right, coast is clear. I can go back to the NWA. Or now WCW, whatever. Speaking of people leaving, Lex Luger has officially given notice to WCW, and he would be supposedly leaving after the Super Brawl show. His contract did not technically expire until March of '93, but he was given a limited release where he could wrestle in Japan, but not the WWF until after his contract expired. For those wondering, this is why Luger debuted as a WBF, World Bodybuilding Federation announcer, in 1992, and didn't actually start as a WWF wrestler until 93. Because Vince basically wanted to lock him down into a contract. He just couldn't have him wrestle. What? Didn't you and I review a show where they had him like cutting promos and stuff, but he wasn't technically a wrestler yet?
I know he did at WrestleMania 8.
Yeah.
Which is this year. Maybe
we didn't review that one, but we, I remember watching it, and I was like, the hell? Like, and they're calling him the Total Package, which would not be his gimmick. He would debut. Didn't he debut as a narcissist?
Yeah.
Okay. After the Royal Rumble, by the way, Kerry Von Erich, who competes in the Rumble as Texas Tornado, was arrested for falsifying prescriptions for Valium and Vicodin. Meanwhile, around the same time period, WCW wrestler the Z-Man, Tom Zank, pled not guilty.
Hell yeah.
Pled not guilty to 6 counts of steroid possession. Lots of drug accusations.
Pretty brutal time.
Yeah, everybody's getting busted.
I don't think I ever pieced it all together like that.
Yeah, I was going through, like, my good Lord, like, they're just cracking down. Like,
well, obviously you know why.
Well, WCW they weren't the bodybuilding place, so they weren't the target as much as the WWF was at this time. But yeah, and this is a bad story. It didn't involve drugs, but it involved something that could have went. I mean, it was bad, but it could have went way worse. Both of the Nasty Boys were injured just the weekend before the Rumble.
No! That's a huge loss.
Good grief. But they, along with the IRS, were driving, not the corporation, I'm talking Nike Rotunda, were driving around, and some fans in another car pulled up beside them and began throwing things at the car and even bumped the car with their own car. At a red light, everyone got out to fight. Knobbs was stabbed 4 times, 3 in the arm, once in the stomach, and Sags was given a concussion when someone swung jumper cables and hit him in the head. Both were treated and released from the hospital that night. Bad stuff, man. Good grief.
Maybe someone didn't want to be audited.
Good grief. Well, hey, IRS got out of there without a scratch, so good for him, man.
I meant the Nasty Boys.
Yeah. Well, because of that, Brian Knobbs was legitimately injured from the stabbing still, and he couldn't wrestle. So he was replaced in the Rumble with King Haku. Jerry Sags was able to go, so he was in the Rumble. Just 1 week before this event, Shawn Michaels put Marty Jannetty through the barbershop window and turned heel. I didn't realize that. It was 1 week before the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, and he's already got new gear and a whole new look at the Rumble. Yeah,
he's officially the Heartbreak Kid at this point. Guess who replaced Jannetty, by the way, in the Rumble match?
Oh, 1992 Skinner?
Nikolai Volkov.
Oh, I wasn't too far off.
Yeah, because if you're going to replace Marty Jannetty, call in Nikolai.
I don't want to laugh at the deceased. No, I'm good. Well,
hey, Nikolai Volkov was a big name in WWF. I don't think 92 is that time.
I think this is when he came out with a Russian flag and the American flag on his tights.
Probably. Hey, by the way, bringing this back, I have a Jax figure of Nikolai Volkov. And
why?
Why not? And I have one of Marty Jannetty, and I have one of the Nasty Boys. All Jax. So.
Who has the Nasty Boys?
Me. My dad was a big fan of theirs.
All right, no offense. What's something wrong with your dad?
He met them. Did I tell you that? He met them at
the
Atlanta airport.
Is that why he's a fan of them?
No, he was a fan of theirs beforehand, but then he met them.
Good grief. So that was like a life moment for him then, because he knew them already.
I mean,
that makes it worse.
I mean, it wasn't like he was meeting Dean Cain or something, but
good grief.
There's a story behind that I'm not going to share now, but getting into the actual show, the prior to the event, it was announced that the winner of the Royal Rumble would win the vacant WWF World Heavyweight Championship, which had been stripped from Hulk Hogan after 2 consecutive title switches between Hogan and The Undertaker, the first being at 1991 Survivor Series and later at the Tuesday in Texas pay-per-view. The Undertaker and Hulk Hogan were given preferential treatment, quotes, in quotes there, for the Rumble, as they both got to choose between numbers 20 and 30 only. They didn't have to go from 1 to 19. In the book, To Be the Man, Ric Flair mentions not knowing that he was actually going to win the Rumble and the WWF title until after arriving at the arena that day. And he also felt that he was being brought in at number 3 in order to showcase his skills and endurance to the WWF audience, who may not have watched his work in WCW and NWA. Meanwhile, Bobby Heenan says that in his autobiography, Bobby the Brain, that he initially suggested that Flair come in at number 1 for dramatic purposes, but that Vince McMahon changed it to number 3 and claimed it as his own idea. Could have happened. Okay. I don't know. So that's that.
Oh, what difference it makes.
Yeah, I don't know. Can't have him come in at number 1, pal. Got to be number 3. God dang it. I don't know. But Shawn Michaels did come in at number 1 and win the whole damn thing, so there's that. So good company.
Also, that was the shortest Royal Rumble in history, too, so.
What, Michaels win?
Yeah, I think it was only like 40 minutes or something like that.
Oh, that makes sense. Still a impressive feat, though. Shawn Michaels is, right in there with Ric Flair as an Iron Man in the ring. But we're going to take a quick break here. First, and when we come back, we're going to dive into the actual Royal Rumble event at hand. Now that we've kind of backstoried and kind of laid the groundwork for where we are in the business at this time. When we come back, diving into the first match of Royal Rumble 1992.
Hi, everyone. This is Clint.
This is Ross.
This is Joel.
This is Cutter.
This is Tony.
From 3 Beers In.
A proud member of Big Heads Media Network.
Each episode we review local Austin craft beer and talk about
Cloven Bananas.
References I don't get. And Academy Award winner Matthew McConaughey.
So tune in.
Crack open a beer.
And hang out with us.
Find us on bigheadsmedia.com, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify,
or on 3beersinpodcast.com.
This is the podcast.
Animal Chat with Dr. Matt, John Williams, and Dr. Matthew Holden. Every week with interviews with veterinarians and writers talking health issues, care for your pets and farm animals, along with real-life stories out in the fields, barns, and houses.
We're diving into Royal Rumble 1992. It happened January 19th, 1992. The tagline, every man for himself. It took place in the Knickerbocker Arena in Albany, New York. The attendance was 17,000, which is basically a sellout. They said you could kind of crowbar 17,500 in there, maybe, but I think they set it up for just the 17,000. So we'll call it a sellout. The first match of
before we start, did you hear that damn bell or cowbell all night long from somebody?
Oh yeah, there's
Dude,
a lot.
It's like
of
the most annoying part of this whole Bay Area. You can hear in every damn match.
Thank God they don't allow people to bring that crap into the arenas anymore.
Right next to the hard camera or something.
Well, and who the hell in Albany, New York, just has a cowbell laying around they can bring in? This seems like a random thing.
Oh, you live in Albany? Of course I have a cowbell.
Yeah. Anybody in Albany or in the Albany area, if you legitimately own a cowbell, let us know on social media. I'm curious now. But this first match doesn't sound very good when I'm going to tell you what it is, but I don't know. I really enjoyed it. It was the New Foundation, which is Owen Hart and Jim Neidhart in the most atrocious attire ever.
Real original name, by the way.
Oh, yeah, the New Foundation. Okay. They took on the team of the Orient Express, Kato, and Tanaka. And they had Mr. Fuji in their corner because evil Japanese heels got to have Mr. Fuji. The match went 17 minutes, 18 seconds, and got 3 1/4 stars from the Wrestling Observer.
I really like this match, so
I thought it was great.
Can't believe he saw it my way. I'm shocked.
Yeah. Well, and I say 17 minutes, 18 seconds, and during this era, when a WWF match went that long, just shy of like 20 minutes, usually it's like, all right, man, wrap it up. Like, You should have went home like 5 minutes ago. But I was entertained start to finish in this.
Yeah, I was too.
I felt the match was ahead of its time. Freaking both teams did great work. Mr. Fuji's Kane got involved, hitting Owen. Owen finally got the hot tag to Anvil, and the crowd went absolutely nuts. The New Foundation hit the rocket launcher for the finish. Owen Hart, was fan-freaking-tastic in this match. And, I mean, both members of the Orient Express did really well. For those that don't remember, Kato and Tanaka just, wore generic black tights and some generic masks. Calling one of them Kato, I thought was a little on the nose, but whatever. Lord Alfred Hayes took us to footage from 2 days ago. Bret Hart competed with a temperature of 104 degrees when he lost the Intercontinental title to the Mountie.
Yeah, because, he's not dying or anything.
Yeah. Well, Roddy Piper came in to save Bret from an attack and is now getting a title shot. So that's something.
Opportunity, pal.
Yeah, right? He was the original Ultimate Opportunist. Didn't he beat up Santa Claus?
I don't remember, but that does not sound wrong. So
I think he did that on, because it was it wasn't technically Santa Claus. It was Bobby Heenan dressed up as Santa Claus, and he was going to tell all the kids.
Santa was rooting for the British national team or something.
The hell? Well,
I think them and the Irish teams hate each other. It's a soccer rivalry.
He's Scottish, damn it. I am offended.
Well, whatever.
Either way.
In my defense, I'm tired. I've been up for 14 hours, so I'm powering through this. So give me a break.
I want to say it was Bobby Heenan was dressed up as Santa, and he was sitting down. He was going to tell the kids, "Hey, Santa isn't real." And Piper jumped the gun and beat the crap out of him before he started to tell him.
I gotta look this up because I want to see this now. This sounds great.
I swear to God, this happened. I remember Bruce talking about it. Sean Mooney interviewed the Mountie and Jimmy Hart. That was a good combo here. Jimmy made fun of Bret was just sick of losing. Why he had 104-degree temperature. Mean Gene then interviewed.
Sick of losing, and he was the champ. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, well, this wasn't the first stupid thing. Well, this was the first of multiple stupid things Jimmy would say on this show, but we'll get to that in a minute. Mean Gene Okerlund interviewed Roddy. He's like, hey baby, we got the Intercontinental title, baby. They better not be wearing the same attire, baby. They make them look like they're on the same team, baby.
My balls are gonna drop any day.
I'm 85 years old. My balls still haven't dropped, Daddy. But Mean Gene interviewed Roddy Piper, who gave one of the wildest promos ever. He was a beautiful nutcase, and I miss Roddy Piper, dude. But yes, up next, Mountie defended the Intercontinental title against Roddy Piper. The match only went 5 minutes, 22 seconds. Meltzer only gave it 1 3/4 stars. What do you think of this one?
I liked it for what it was. I remember watching it and losing my crap when Piper won.
Yep, yeah. This was a shorty. Wasn't great. The Mountie was fine.
Well, I remember when I was a kid, I used to get hella scared when he hit people with that shock stick, and then when Piper hit him with that, I remember cheering.
Yep.
Man, that was kind of sadistic back then. I want to see a man get zapped to death.
Oh, and then we got to see it for Goldberg, and then later for Scott Hall in WCW. But there wasn't lot. There wasn't a lot of cheating, but the Mountie was an opportunist throughout the match. At this point already in the show, Bobby Heenan was on fire with great comments about Ric Flair. As for those that don't remember, Bobby Heenan was Ric Flair's financial advisor or some crap like that. So he had a vested interest in Flair. The Mountie skinned the cat over the top rope, charged at Piper on the other side of the ring, but Piper moved and the Mountie collided with Jimmy Hart, knocked him off the apron. Piper then used a sleeper hold to win his first ever title, which blows my mind that it was 1992. He wins his first belt. After the match,
championship.
Well, and then think about this. He didn't win another championship in the WWF until him and Flair had that short-lived run as tag champs in the 2000s.
14 years later, I think.
Yeah, which is historically the longest gap between title reigns in the WWF or WWE. After the match, like you alluded to, Piper gave Mountie a zap with his shock stick, and for some reason, they played a sound for it over the PA system that sounded like a game show buzzer. So he nails him with a shock stick, and it goes, what the hell?
Oh, man. Living in California, you could probably, it's not a shock. I've actually seen people get tased from cops. I know, shocker. Especially in San Francisco. It does not make that noise. So.
No, they were a lot more realistic about it in WCW. I mean, it makes a sound kind of like like that.
Yeah.
Like, who was the one that's like, we'll just play something like, you got the answer wrong on Family Feud.
Oh man.
They reused that sound later in the night for when the countdown went to 0 and a new guy was coming out in the Rumble.
Wow. Is he really similar?
Alfred Hayes got a word in with Hulk Hogan, who talked about how he wouldn't have any friends in the Royal Rumble match. Gene Okerlund then spoke with the Bushwhackers and Jameson. Stupid and wacky and geared towards children. Not my taste whatsoever. Also, the Bushwhackers don't wash their hands after taking a crap.
Oh, one for sure. Hold on. Let's be fair.
Okay. Wait, was it the one who can walk under his own power?
I believe it's Butch. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And the reason I'm saying that is because Greg saw for a fact at WrestleCon 2018?
18. Yeah, 18.
18, yeah. He took a crap. I mean, he didn't see him taking a crap, but he saw him. He was in the stall. He walked out of the stall. He left the bathroom. Never touched that sink.
It was disgusting. I think I ran right to you, too. I'm like, dude, stay away from
And judging by the way the Bushwhackers gimmick was, the way they looked, you think he wiped his ass with his own hand, too. So...
Wow.
There's so much grossness. But, the Jameson character, man, it was from the Bobby Heenan show. I guess he was a comedian. This was before my time.
A slapstick comedian.
Yeah, he looked frumpy. Like, this was a character he played where he made himself look nerdy.
Oh,
and
he looked like white Steve Urkel. Okay, there. Enough said.
But dirty.
Yeah.
And he hung around with the Bushwhackers for some reason. And like, if you didn't watch the Bobby Heenan show, you didn't know who the F this guy was. They didn't really explain it to you on camera. They're just like, oh, there's Jameson, and he's here with the Bushwhackers. Like, okay.
Can we say one positive thing? I mean, the pairing made all the sense in the world.
Yeah, but I will say this: they're not dead, so I'm not speaking ill of the dead. And even if they were, it's like I'm not being not truthful here. I hated the Bushwhackers. I was never a fan of anything they ever did.
I think I liked them when I was a kid.
Yeah, well, see, that makes sense. Like I said right there, not my taste. It was geared towards kids, and kids did love them. They were a kid-friendly comedy act. I will say, eventually on my other podcast where we cover non-wrestling or non-WWE wrestling, retro wrestling review, go check it out. Cheap plug. We will eventually at some point cover the Sheep Herders, that was the previous gimmick of the Bushwhackers. They were dirty, rotten heels, and they did a lot of hardcore stuff and bled all over the place. So I kind of want to see what that was like. But this match, man, the Beverly Brothers, Bo and Blake Beverly, with the Genius in their corner. They took on the Bushwhackers, Butch and Luke, with Jameson in their corner. The match went 14 minutes, 56 seconds of agony, and it got -1.5 stars.
And the Beverly Brothers were good, too. So...
And on commentary, if you didn't already know which one was Bo and which one was Blake. Commentary did not help you out during this match because they didn't tell you. They just kept saying the Beverlys, the Beverly Brothers, whatever.
Hey, quick question. How close do you live to Shaker Heights?
I don't know. Why?
That's what they're from.
Oh, wow. I never even paid attention. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think anybody's like, yeah, Shaker Heights, that's where the Beverly Brothers are from. Woo!
I was just curious. It was a real place.
It's not like when you drive into Ashtabula, Ohio, there's a sign that says the birthplace of Urban Meyer. Like, that's an actual thing. Like, or when you drive into Cameron, North Carolina, there's a sign that says home of the Hardy Boys. I don't think Shaker Heights has that sign for the Beverlys. I would pop, though.
It's an inner ring streetcar suburb of Cleveland, if that helps. So there you go.
Oh, God. Well, then I'm about 3.5 hours from them.
I say if they come out there for the game, we got to go visit it.
Just to see if they do have that sign. But I said this is the most baffling use of nearly 15 minutes in the history of pay-per-view. It was like a bad joke.
And Roddy Piper and Jock, or the Mountie, got 5 minutes.
Yeah. This was like a bad joke that a comedian dragged out and out and out, and he didn't know when to cut it off. The Genius smacked Jameson outside of the ring, which was probably the highlight of the damn match. But crowd was still dead. Crowd was effing just dead for this one, man. The Beverly Brothers won with an axe handle to save us all from continuing pain. After the match, by the way, the Bushwhackers, who were supposed to be the baby faces, beat up the winners and allowed Jameson to kick the Genius in the shin. The Genius was, oddly enough, the only watchable part of this entire match, and that's saying a lot when you get upstaged by Lanny Poffo.
Not even leaping Lanny Poffo.
Yeah, no, he was the Genius at this point. The poet laureate of the WWF. Yeah, good stuff. And I say that dripping with sarcasm. Mean Gene Okerlund interviewed the WWF Tag Team Champions, the Legion of Doom, up next, who cut one of their usual shouty promos. Hawk said that they were going to use their opponent's weight, or throw their opponent's weight around. Ha, ha, because they were taking on the Natural Disasters. The Natural Disasters, by the way, Earthquake and Typhoon had Jimmy Hart in their corner to take on the WWF Tag Team Champions, the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal. The match went 9 minutes, 24 seconds, and got 1.5 stars. I would have given it 2. This wasn't like a dynamic match, but I thought it was pretty good for a 9.5 minute Hoss match.
That had no finish.
Yeah, that did bring the quality down a little bit, I will say that. It was kind of what you'd expect from these teams. The Disasters used their size to put the LOD in trouble. Animal got the hot tag and hit a big shoulder block. A brawl broke out that took things to the outside. Typhoon barely beat the count back into the ring, giving his team the win via countout. Therefore, the champions retain the titles. Backstage, Sean Mooney spoke with the Natural Disasters and Jimmy Hart. They were furious they didn't win the tag titles, and Jimmy threatened to call his lawyer because, continuing on with stupid things Jimmy Hart says, he apparently doesn't understand the rules of wrestling.
That's funny. At SummerSlam, when Mountie got locked up because of Boss Man, the match they had, he also threatened to call his lawyer. So he must have this guy in a huge retainer. Good
Lord. He probably should have called him when he lost that match in Memphis where he had to dress up like the San Diego Chicken. I don't know. I just thrown that out there. But yeah, that kicked off a slew of interviews, by the way. Roddy Piper was super excited at the prospect of being a double champion later that night. Shawn Michaels hyped up his time as a solo star, and we got clips of the infamous barbershop scene. Ric Flair,
where Marty tried to jump out the window and try to blame Shawn for throwing him.
Yeah, that damn Marty Jannetty.
Speaking of Marty Jannetty, John Morrison's back. But anyways.
What? What does one have to do with the other?
He's the Jannetty of him and Miz. Come on. Everyone knows that.
Oh my gosh. I wouldn't even put that evil on him. Hey, he did big things, not in the WWF, but yeah. He was Johnny Mundo.
Yeah.
No, nothing.
Keep going.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah. It's a good thing after that dirty, rotten Shawn Michaels did that terrible thing that he never went anywhere in this business.
That's a shame.
Ric Flair revealed that he drew number 3, but he still guaranteed victory. Then we got rapid fire Rumble promos from each of the guys that say they're going to win. They came from Randy Savage, Sid Justice, Repo Man, British Bulldog, Jake Roberts, Undertaker, and Hulk Hogan.
Whew. And sadly, Naked Mania was not in the WWE at this time.
He was not. But I think that's our cue to take our final break of the podcast. When we come back, we're going to cover the Rumble match itself and kind of talk about what happened afterwards leading into WrestleMania 8. We will be right back after these short messages.
Welcome to Pistons Thoughts, where we talk, well, you guessed it, Pistons. Come join us weekly for everything Pistons. I swear we're fun.
Yeah, maybe.
A little bit, right?
Just a tiny bit.
Okay. Well, either way, you'll probably have a great time. Come on and listen.
Hi, everybody. I'm RJ Metzger.
And I'm Rachel Metzger.
And we're the Skeptical Skeptics.
Each week we talk about all the crazy things in the world, ranging from the paranormal to Bigfoot to UFOs.
And we look at it from the perspective of the believer, the skeptic, and everything in between.
So come check us out on the MSC Podcast Network.
Or go to skepticalskeptics.com and follow us at SkepSkepPod on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Okay, we're back, and that means we're diving into the 30-man Royal Rumble match for the WWF World Heavyweight Championship. This match went 62 minutes and 2 seconds. Uncle Dave from the Wrestling Observer gave it 3 3/4 stars, whereas 411 Mania and Wrestling DVD Network gave it 4 3/4 stars. This was a really good Rumble match, and I'm, not usually, yay, this is a great quality match, but I thought this was good.
So many people call this the best one ever.
It's hard to argue. This one's really good. I think the 98 one is really good. I'd really honestly have to sit and go through, because there were a lot of duds. There were a lot of mediocre ones.
2007 is probably my favorite.
Which one was that? I'm trying to think.
That's when the Undertaker won.
Did it come down to him and Edge? Was that the final two?
No, him and Shawn Michaels.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, that was good. There were quite a few good ones out there. But either way, number 1 and number 2 were the British Bulldog and Ted DiBiase. Surprisingly, DiBiase was eliminated before the next entrant even arrived. Jake the Snake Roberts hit Ric Flair with a short arm clothesline later on in the match before Roddy Piper saved Flair, and Bobby Heenan says, "I never thought I'd be saying this. Thank God for Roddy Piper. It's a kilt. It's not a skirt."
Yeah.
Heenan.
I love when he turns on him, he's like, "You damn skirt wearing jerk."
He changed his tune back later. He was like, "You skirt wearing freak." And within a matter of seconds. Good grief. Freaking Heenan was the best, man. Undertaker actually came out number 20. Hulk Hogan was number 26. Okay, I was confused about the whole thing. Did they get to choose themselves between 20 and 30? Or did they just have, a drawing of only 20 to 30? Because if they got to choose, why did they not choose 29 and 30? That's just dumb.
I don't know. They never said anything about that. They said they made that one mention about the numbers, and that's it.
Yeah, I don't know. But Randy Savage eliminated himself shortly after eliminating Jake Roberts by jumping over the top rope to jump on top of Roberts. However, he returned to the ring and resumed participation. Gorilla Monsoon explained this as, he could do this since he eliminated himself. However, Big Boss Man technically eliminated himself just minutes before this, and nobody said a damn thing. Because he went charging at Ric Flair. Ric Flair ducked. Boss Man hit the ropes and, fell over the top. And then he just went to the back. So I don't know. This was definitely an F up on the part of the Macho Man. By the way,
he's famous for that in Royal Rumbles. If you think about it, he's messed up quite a few times.
Oh, did he do that more than once? I didn't even know that.
Multiple things, not that, but yeah.
Well, yeah. I'm trying to think. There were some other people that
he tried to pin Yokozuna in 1983, and then Yokozuna tossed him over the top.
I remember that. I was like, "What the F are you doing, Macho?" Like, he never remembered the rules of the Rumble. Like, dude, do you not know what a Battle Royal is? Come on, Macho. He's like, I'm all hopped up on Slim Jims. Ooh, dig it. The place blew their crap when Sid Justice came out, by the way, at number 29. He was huge. Massively over.
Big league.
Huge with a Y. Big league. Biggest ever. Sid eliminated Hulk Hogan to the shock of the crowd. Hogan, being the sore loser that he is, grabbed Sid's arm from the outside and allowed Ric Flair to sneak up behind him and dump him out for the win. But yet, Hulk Hogan is going to be the babyface and Sid's the heel. Something doesn't add up here.
Well, I heard a story. I don't obviously don't remember it, but like apparently at the end, I don't want to jump to the end, but like Gorilla Monsoon defends what Sid does, but they go back and edit it to where he's all pro Hogan about it.
Yeah, well, yeah, cause I had read that as well, where Gorilla Monsoon was like, perfectly fine, whatever. But then, yeah, like you said, they went back for the Coliseum home video release. They went back and he changed his commentary where he's like, "Oh, that dirty, rotten Sid." And it's like, okay. But still, we have eyes. It just doesn't add up to me. But Ric Flair, with this win, set a new longevity record with a time of 1 hour and 2 seconds. He beat the previous record held by Rick Martel the year before in 1991. That's an odd piece of trivia for you there. This was the 5th consecutive year the record was broken. But, I mean, that kind of makes sense because this was the 5th Rumble in history, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hogan got into the ring after the match with Sid, and security had to pull them apart. Backstage, Ric Flair, Mr. Perfect, and Bobby Heenan all celebrated. Mean Gene interviewed them, and Flair gave his famous "with a tear in my eye" promo where he said this was the greatest night of his life. Overall, final scores for the pay-per-view, 411 Mania gave it an 8 out of 10. Wrestling DVD Network gave it a 7.5 out of 10. I gave it an 8 out of 10. What say you?
Top 5. Maybe a 7.
Wow. A 7? Wow.
I thought the Royal Rumble match was good enough to make it high. I like the opening. I like the opening match. I like the IC title match.
Yeah, that could have been better, but yeah, it was more of a moment than a fantastic match, I would say.
For that reason too.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, this wasn't a fantastic, like top to bottom fantastic card, but it wasn't bad. The only terrible thing that stands out to me is that 15-minute Bushwhacker Beverly Brothers bullcrap.
What do you mean bullcrap?
I said what I said. The aftermath of this show, the confrontation between Hulk Hogan and Sid Justice was played out over a series of weeks on WWF Superstars on January 25th, 1992. President Jack Tunney held a press conference where he announced that Hogan would face Flair for the WWF World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 8. Justice, who was also in attendance at the press conference, began standing up as if Tunney were about to proclaim him as the top contender. And he was outraged and termed the announcement, quote, "the most bogus act Jack Tunney has ever pulled off." Sid later apologized to Hogan, and Hogan accepted, but on February 8th's Saturday night main event, Justice abandoned Hogan during a tag team match against Ric Flair and The Undertaker, completing his heel turn and leading to a match at WrestleMania 8. It just so many things were wrong at this time because, like, Bruce Pritchard even admitted, and because it had been rumor for years, and Bruce Pritchard said, he's like, yeah, this was true. They wanted Sid to basically take the mantle from Hulk Hogan, who was going off to film a movie. I mean, he sure as hell got the reaction of Hulk Hogan, or close to it at least. He had the look, bro, and bringing it back. He was supposed to be a big baby face, like the top baby face, but he said, no, I'd rather be a heel. So it didn't happen, which I can't understand why. So that had to be changed. I mean, his last name was Justice. He was going to be, the All-American Sid.
Well,
whatever.
I still feel WrestleMania worked out. It didn't go the way it should have, but Macho Man and Flair was pretty memorable.
Yeah, Macho Man and Flair was good. I'm not saying it wasn't. But we were supposed to get Ric Flair basically in his prime against Hulk Hogan basically in his prime. And they said, no. That's not where the money is. The money is with Sid and Hogan for no stakes whatsoever, by the way.
Well, I mean, they needed that to get Papa Shanku going.
Yeah, which was botched, so that didn't even happen. And all of it was F. All of it was screwed. And yeah, so we didn't. And here's the thing, like, in reality, think about this in real terms. Hogan said, look, I have a shot to go for the WWF title in the main event of WrestleMania against Ric Flair, or I can take on this guy who I'm kind of mad at for abandoning me in a tag match for no stakes whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's like, what what pills did Jimmy Hart give Hulk Hogan at this time to do this? And I'm saying that because everybody go back and listen to my other podcast, Retro Wrestling Review, our Hulk Hogan in Japan episode. We came up with a good character. It's during the match, Jimmy Hart's going nuts on the outside for Hogan. We deemed him Pilled Up Jimmy Hart, and we use that character frequently. But anyway, Flair, meanwhile, as you alluded to, began feuding with Randy Savage over the WWF title. According to the storyline, Flair claimed that he had a previous relationship with Savage's wife, Miss Elizabeth, going as far as presenting pictures of Elizabeth with Flair. Flair had actually superimposed his head on somebody else's body. This culminated in a title match at WrestleMania 8. Savage won the match and his second and final WWF World's Heavyweight Championship. That, I will say, that storyline was really good. Weird, but good. And it made Flair a dirty, rotten, filthy heel. Just like he always liked to be.
Yeah, that's what made him one.
Yeah. So, that was that for the Royal Rumble 1992. Like I said, Ric Flair dropped the title, WrestleMania 8. And I'm trying to figure out the timeline here of when he was back. He returned to WCW in February of 1993, so less than a year after WrestleMania, he's out of here. But he was still under a no-compete clause, so he had to host the short-lived talk show, A Flair for the Gold, where they introduced Paul Roma as the new member of the Four Horsemen.
The job guy from WWE.
Oh, man.
Hey, you know what else happened on Flair for the Gold? We already mentioned it, too.
The debut of the Shotmaster. Hey, that's Uncle Fred.
It was epic.
Hell yeah, it is.
I could watch it all day.
You probably have. Do you have the Jax figure of him?
No. Do you?
No, I wish. Like, when I found out they came out with that, at first, I honestly thought it was a joke. And then I was seeing it legitimately being sold. I'm like, well, hot damn. I kind of want it.
I need the Mattel one, though. It's epic.
Yeah, we'll get.
It's literally upside down in the package, dude.
Oh, I thought that was a Jakks figure. Oh no, yeah, you're right. That is the Mattel figure. Yeah, that's. Mattel did things right. Speaking of which, we always plug. I have this figure of that, and blah blah blah, and who had this figure. If anybody has the opportunity, watch the show. The Toys That Made Us. They did an entire episode on the history of toys in professional wrestling. It's fantastic. It goes all the way from like the first WWF like LGN figures to the current Mattel figures that we got. Great stuff, and a lot of stuff I never knew. But so plugging that show, shameless plug. Anything else you want to mention about the Rumble 92 before we get out of here?
Just go watch it.
Yeah, it was definitely a show worth watching. This was a cool era in WWF history. I enjoyed it. Greg enjoyed it. Good stuff.
Bobby Heenan's commentary through the Royal match alone is worth it, by the way.
Yeah, abso-frickin-lutely. It was great.
What number did Virgil come out? 23, 24? You know how many bags he went through in the back?
The hell?
That's really sad.
Yeah. But, all right. That about wraps it up. I do not know what's to come in the next few weeks. I have some ideas percolating. We are approaching WrestleMania season, but we are not there yet. We did not say anything about the Royal Rumble 2020 on this episode, which happened when this plays. It already happened like this past weekend.
Great! You gave away the secret record ahead of time.
Yeah, we recorded well ahead of the Rumble, so that's why we're not mentioning it. If anything spectacular happens, we'll put something on our YouTube. Go to youtube.com/podcast wrestling society for great extra content. I just loaded it up with a bunch of stuff with me and Delvin Cox on there. There's some interesting stuff. We eulogize La Parka and talk about the Tessa Blanchard stuff and current state of Impact and AEW and whatever. And whether or not, I mean, it's old by now, but whether or not a certain superstar is coming back in the Royal Rumble 2020. All right, man. Well, thanks for joining me again here today, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
And we will see you all next week. Later.
Later.